They killed the wrong man on a rainy night in a quiet town, and for about 3 days, everyone thought that was the end of it. Paperwork signed, story, agreed on life, moving on like nothing happened. Yeah, that happened, just another name people would forget. But what nobody in Pine Hollow understood yet was that when they pulled that trigger, they didn't end a story, they split it open, and what crawled out of that split was something they had absolutely no idea how to handle. See, Pine Hollow is one of those places that looks harmless if you drive through in daylight. Flags on porches, kids riding bikes, church signs, advertising potlucks and prayer nights. Folks smile at you real polite. But there's a kind of quiet there that isn't peaceful, it's trained. The kind where people learn when not to ask questions. You know what I mean? That night, Marcus Hale was just trying to get home. He wasn't anybody special by Pine Hollow standards. He designed buildings for a living, the invisible guy behind blueprints and load calculations. He had a fiancée, Renee, who left notes on the fridge, and a rescue dog that thought Marcus hung the moon. That was his whole world. And still, when those blue lights lit up his rearview mirror, his stomach dropped because some of us grow up knowing that doing everything right doesn't always save you. He checked the speed under the limit, hands up, engine off, polite as a Sunday morning. One cruiser became two, then three. That's when you know this isn't about a traffic stop anymore. Deputy Clay Mercer stepped out first. Big man, tactical vest, jaw set like he'd already decided how this was going to go. He didn't knock, didn't tap, just smashed his flashlight against the glass and told Marcus to roll it down. Marcus did everything they tell you to do. Calm voice, hands visible, explaining every movement like his life depended on it, because it did. Mercer told him to get out of the car in the pouring rain, shoved him when he hesitated, accused him of fitting some vague description. When Marcus slipped in the mud and his hand brushed his jacket pocket where his phone was, Mercer didn't miss a beat. Gun. 3 shots followed, fast and ugly. Marcus never even got a chance to understand what was happening. While he lay there choking on rain and blood, Mercer dropped a revolver next to his hand and told the radio the story they'd already rehearsed. Suspect drew down, threat neutralized, case closed. And while Marcus died, he wasn't thinking about court or justice or headlines. He thought about Renee. And then somewhere in that fading space, he thought about his twin brother Logan, the one he hadn't talked to in years. 3 days later, Logan Hale listened to a voicemail that cracked his world clean in half. Renee's voice came through the phone, broken, barely holding together long enough to say the words. The police killed him. Logan didn't scream, didn't throw anything. His body did what it had been trained to do a long time ago. It went still, cold, focused. Logan wasn't living a quiet life anymore. He was the kind of man who worked in rooms without windows, who handled problems nobody wanted to admit existed, and Marcus was the one thing that kept him anchored to being human. Logan asked for leave. Indefinite. His commanding officer warned him real quiet that if he went back and burned that town down, nobody could protect him. Logan said he wasn't going to burn it down. He said he was going to put it on trial. That sounded reasonable. It wasn't. But it was honest. When Logan showed up in Pine Hollow, people noticed. Same face as Marcus, same build, but the warmth was gone. He went to the funeral home first, asked to see the body, asked questions the police hadn't wanted asked. Wound angles, bruises on the wrists, residue tests that didn't line up. He didn't yell, he didn't accuse. He just took notes in his head and fixed Marcus's tie like he was getting him ready for one last meeting. At the roadside, he found a shell casing the police had missed. Sloppy work. And then Deputy Mercer saw him standing there and went pale because for a second he thought the dead man was standing in front of him. Logan didn't correct him. He let that fear settle in and drove away, slow, legal calm, leaving Mercer shaking like his conscience had finally woken up. That fear spread fast. Mercer ran to Sheriff Dalton Rusk, a man who ran Pine Hollow like it was his personal kingdom. The rookie mentioned something that made the room go quiet. Marcus had a twin. Twin B didn't exist on paper. No records, no history. A ghost. Rusk decided to handle it the same way he handled everything else. Force first, story later. That night, they kicked in Logan's motel door with a battering ram and a flashbang, expecting to find a scared civilian. Instead, they found Logan sitting in a chair watching the weather like he'd been waiting for them. In less than 10 seconds, Mercer was gasping on the floor. Guns were disarmed, and the room belonged to Logan. He didn't hurt anyone badly. He didn't have to. He told Rusk he was live streaming the whole thing to a lawyer in D.C., said the footage would go public if they touched him. It was a bluff, but Rusk backed down because bullies always do when they're not sure they can win. After that, Logan stopped reacting and started moving. He planted a listening device on one of the deputies and heard the real reason Marcus had to die. It wasn't just prejudice. It was money. Land rezoning. Chemical runoff buried under paperwork. Marcus had found it while designing a civic project and started asking questions. Questions that would cost powerful people a lot of cash. Logan broke into Marcus's office and found the files his brother had been quietly collecting, surveys that didn't match soil reports that screamed contamination, and property records tying the sheriff directly to the land deal. Marcus had tried to fight with facts. Logan decided to fight with pressure. He split the department with paranoia, used technology and timing to make them distrust each other, pulled bank records that showed payoffs, and then went after Mercer's weakest point, his nerves. One night, Mercer came home to see dashcam footage playing on his TV footage he thought he'd destroyed, showing Marcus's empty hands and the planted gun. Mercer panicked. He talked. He confessed out loud to a voice that sounded like Marcus. Logan recorded every word from a distance. Still, Logan knew talk wasn't enough. In a town that rotten, they'd throw out anything that smelled even slightly illegal. He needed the physical evidence, the gun. So he cut the power downtown, slipped into the police station during the generator delay, and grabbed the evidence box. That's when Rusk cornered him with hired guns, not deputies. Men without badges, men meant to clean up messes permanently. Logan barely escaped with the gun and the logbook, and when he did, the message was clear. This wasn't a chess match anymore, it was war. Logan drove straight to Renee's house. The front door was open. The place was wrecked. A note sat on the kitchen table, pinned down with a knife. Bring the evidence to the quarry at dawn, or she dies. Logan stood there a long time, breathing slow, then opened a hidden compartment in his truck and took out the case he hoped he'd never need again. Because once you take that step, you don't get to pretend you're just collecting proof anymore. The quarry sat outside town like a scar, all shadows and rusted machinery. Floodlights lit it up like a stadium. Renee was tied to a chair in the middle, bruised but alive. Sheriff Rusk stood there smoking like he owned the night. The district attorney was there, 2 expensive shoes sinking into dirt. Mercer paced nearby, jumpy hand-wrapped. A sniper watched from above. Contractors, the kind paid to make problems disappear, circled the perimeter. Logan watched them through his scope, rain soaking into his sleeves, heart steady. He took out the sniper first. Quiet, clean. Then the communications. Confusion rippled through the group. When Rusk screamed for Mercer to kill Renee, Logan didn't hesitate. He shot Mercer's hand instead, shattering the weapon and ending that threat without killing him. Chaos exploded. Gunfire hammered Logan's position, but he was already moving, sliding down a zip line he'd set earlier, disappearing into the dark while they fired at ghosts. What followed wasn't loud heroics. It was controlled violence. Flashbangs dropped from above. The generator went up in flames. Darkness swallowed the quarry. Logan moved through it with night vision while the others stumbled blind. He reached Renee, cut her free, told her to run and not look back. A contractor rushed him, and for a moment it was ugly and close blood and dirt and breath, but Logan ended it. When the smoke thinned, only the leaders remained. The district attorney crawled, crying about immunity. Logan shot out his tires and told him to zip tie himself or join the others. Rusk hid behind his SUV, yelling about being the law. Logan noticed the stack of chemical barrels behind him, the same poison Marcus had died trying to expose. Logan didn't aim for Rusk. He aimed for the valve. Acid sprayed screaming filled the pit, and the lawman's power dissolved into something small and human and terrified. Logan watched, not smiling, not celebrating, just finishing the equation. Then he sent everything, files, recordings, financial trails, video from the quarry, to every network, every agency, every office that couldn't pretend not to see it. Sirens came, real ones this time. Federal, state, the kind that don't answer to small-town kings. Renee stood at the tree line shaking, watching men with authority flood the pit. She looked back once, searching for Logan, but he was already gone. Months later, the trial consumed the state. The district attorney flipped. The chemical company collapsed. Sheriff Rusk survived blind and ruined, sentenced to rot in a cell where his badge meant nothing. Mercer lived 2 missing parts of himself, screaming about ghosts and 2 faces. The civic center was rebuilt somewhere safe and named after Marcus, like the town was trying to apologize. Renee attended the dedication stronger but changed, and like anyone who's lost something that way, she scanned the crowd. Some people swear they saw a man standing far back under a tree, watching just long enough to make sure it was done. He didn't wave, he didn't step forward, he turned and walked away. Here's the part people argue about. Logan didn't fix the system. He didn't cure prejudice or corruption or power. What he did was force consequences in a place that had never known them. So the question isn't whether he was right or wrong, the question is this. If the system had worked the first night, Marcus would still be alive. And when the system doesn't work, when it's bought and sold and smiles at you while it destroys you, what does justice even look like? Then I want to hear what you think. Was it justice or just violence pointed in a direction people finally approved of? If you've seen something like this, lived in a place like this, tell that story. Drop it in the comments. And if this hit you, really hit you, stick around. Because stories like this don't come from nowhere, and the next one might feel even closer to home.